Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that changes everything.
All right, let's move on to the Bayern game. Not much to write home about. I said this in our Substack chat. I felt for Heidenheim because I thought they looked really good in this game, but they just don't have the quality to compete in the Bundesliga right now. That is the unfortunate reality that they face. I think they actually played really well. They did everything right. They're just not good enough. And that's just the reality. And for Bayern Munich, they're not a team that stumbles at the moment when they are faced with adversity like they did last year. Kompany has been playing incredible good football, and he can now mix and match players. And there's an Ito playing on the left, there's Stanisic playing on the right, Guerrera playing in midfield, Goretzka. As long as you have that front line with Louis Diaz, Karl, Ulisi, and Kane up, everything is good in the world. And we're getting to the point now in the season. And there was so much talk about this last year, and I kind of really wanted to focus a little bit on this show because there's this ever there was this long theme, especially in our Substack chat, that Kompany, when is he playing the kids? When is he playing the kids? When is he playing the kids? Well, guys, I think you need to find a different topic because he's playing the kids. Because Lennart Karl is now fully established superstar at Bayern Munich at 17, right? Mr. Mike got minutes in this game. David Daiber, an 18-year-old midfielder who represents Portugal at the youth level but was born and raised in Munich, got minutes in this game. He comes on for Rafael Guerrero, right? And then Casiano Chiala, a 16-year-old center back, second youngest Bayern player in Bundesliga history, makes his debut. Perfect timing because we do this talents calendar thing on Transfermarkt every Christmas period, right? And he was actually the talent that we featured on December 22nd, so today. And so there's a feature on him on Transfermarkt with quotes from Markus Weinziel, his youth coach, who spoke in great length about him. It means also I know a little bit about him. He is a talent with massive upside, and you know what? I think Kompany, and I mentioned this I think on one of the bonus shows, he is actually more than willing to play players from the academy, especially if they still have an empty hard drive and he can form them. And I think we now, with Bayern Munich being more comfortable in the Bundesliga, I think we're going to the stage now where the kids are coming, Stefan.
Yeah, and as you know, as our subscribers have alluded to, doesn't come a moment too soon. It's an interesting kind of development that we see at Bayern. I think you could cynically say, well, Bayern are playing the kids because they've already won the Bundesliga, no one's put up a challenge. I don't think that's really the case. I think they're doing it because these guys deserve to play. I think Lennart Karl's been a revelation since he came into the team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even in this game, he was kind of almost calling the shots at times. Even though those guys like Diaz and Olise on the pitch, Bayern obviously missing a huge number of players either through injury. I'm not sure if they have. Oh no, Jackson's obviously an international duty. That's the one that stands out. But Bischoff was out, Sasha Boya was out, Kim Min-jae out, Kimmich out, Leimer out. Leimer had yellow card. Musiala's still not back. Neuer still out. Pavlovic out. So huge number of players missing. It's perhaps a little fortunate that this game fell on the match against Heidenheim, that they were able to kind of bring in a kind of second roster, the B team, and they did perfectly well. And yeah, it's great. These kids are obviously doing well, and things are going really well for Bayern. And it seems like every time they bring one of these kids in, they do really, really well. I've kind of ran out of superlatives for Lennart Karl. I think he's not just in terms of like a technical player, in terms of how good he is, he's also just shown a maturity to want the ball, which either comes to him naturally or is something he's learned from Musiala, because as I've said it to, and I keep drawing the comparisons to him, and hopefully it's justified in the long run, but the way that he's came into this Bayern team and demands the ball and demands to be the guy who sets up the plays, reminds me so much of Musiala. He doesn't shirk away from responsibility, and it's a testament to that squad that he obviously feels comfortable enough to do those things. I do think it's also interesting that, if you kind of want to couple this with Bayern's transfer policy over the recent years, which has very much become this idea of we're just going to sign the best players in their peak years If that means we have to pay through our nose for a Premier League player, then so be it. And Harry Kane's a perfect example of that. Diaz is another one. I know they got Olise for relatively cheap, but it's still a player they paid 50 million euros for from Crystal Palace. This is all kind of money that would have Karl-Heinz Rummenigge reaching for the whiskey bottle, once upon a time. And as a result, they've actually, I was just checking this actually as we started the segment, they've got the second oldest starting 11 average age in the Bundesliga this year. And that's obviously considering some of the young players they brought in. But you look at the guys who are stepping in to help out here. Goretzka, no spring chicken. Guerrero, no spring chicken. Serge Gnabry, no spring chicken. These are all kind of guys who are in late 20s, if not early 30s. Jonathan Tah, another good example. He's a player that they signed in the summer from Leverkusen who is by no means a young player. Not an old player either, but not a young one either. So they have to fill the gaps here in that squad, not only from a financial point of view, because they can't go out and sign a whole bench of players like Diaz or Olise or Kane, but also from a kind of sporting point of view. They need to have those youthful legs in amongst your Kanes, your Goretzkas, guys like that, Urbig's another perfect example coming in from Manuel Neuer, who, we've talked about. Still been a very, very good player, but is definitely pushing the limits of the human body, I think it's fair to say, in terms of what an athlete can do at the top of the game at 40. So I think Bayern have been really smart about the way that they've I don't want to say filled in the cracks, because that would suggest there's issues. I don't think that's the right word, but filled in the gaps, maybe, if you will, with this kind of layer of youthful players. And it's a testament to the campus at Bayern, which is a very impressive place, that these guys are able to come in and step up. And it's a testament to Vincent Kompany that he's able to put kind of trust in these guys for sure. And it's working out really, really well. And hopefully, Manu, this might be an interesting kind of we might be seeing a new kind of approach to squad building at Bayern before our very eyes here, because, there was so much talk before Kompany came in about how Bayern are going to approach the transfer market, because, we had that whole policy under Oliver Kahn and Salihamidzic that didn't work out. Huge amount of criticism around, Max Abel and his companions at Bayern right now over whether they were doing the right thing with the players we were signing, the players letting go, etc. And we've kind of seen this team come together and form a very natural bond of older, established, world-class players and young players who could go on to become world-class players. And to give Bayern some credit and to maybe give them benefit of the doubt, at this point, it's beginning to look like it's all been part of a long-term plan. And if that's the case, then credit to them, because it seems like the perfect blend of talent and youth.
Yeah. I think some of us have to do.
Is this for you cynically tell me that they've just been lucky?
No, I'm. This is where I'm cynically telling you that there was a lot of people wrong at Bayern Munich, and one old man at the Tegernsee, who we laughed at, very right. Olli Hoeneß has been preaching this transfer policy for a long time. And it's because that's what he was doing in the 90s and the early 2000s when he was in charge of player transfers. This Bayern team was always this was always a club that relied heavily on youth players, and they would only sign the stars to supplement that team, right? You look at the golden generation of Schweinsteiger and Philipp Lahm and Thomas Müller, and that team was supplemented by the likes of Arjen Robben and Frank Ribéry. And Olli Hoeneß, finally put his foot down this summer and said no more player names. The board had to, basically at the end of the day, the only player that arrived was Nicholas Jackson on loan, because Olli Hoeneß said this is enough. We can sign one marquee player a year or two max, but we can't do it every year. Because we have to earn our own money. This is what he's been preaching. He's not always very good at delivering the message. I can agree with everyone there, but I think he might have been right here. And he said this over and over again. We have to rely more on our academy players. We're spending 70 million euros on our campus. We need to bring these players through the campus and need to bring them up. And I hate to say this, but old man Olli was right. We're seeing it right in front of our eyes. The academy is developing young players, and the only way for them to get into the first team is by playing. Lennart Karl is playing for Bayern Munich because Florian Wirtz didn't arrive this summer, and because Thomas Müller was moved on, right? A young guy like Kiala is now playing for Bayern Munich because they didn't sign an additional center back, right? You look at like Mr. Mike, who's going to get increasingly big minutes in this team. He's going to get more minutes because Kingsley Coman was sold, and then Olli Hoeneß said no replacements. And
exactly.
And I would now say, cynically, I don't think that was the plan by the majority of the Bayern Munich board, but it was one that they had to execute because there was one man who was very powerful and said, this is how we have to do it. And Olli Hoeneß was right. And we're seeing it right in front of our eyes that he was. And I think he played a really big role in signing Vincent Kompany, a coach who was on board with it. And so that's why it's working. So the cynic in me would say, there was a plan here, but I don't think everyone agreed to it.
Yeah, and it also kind of sets Bayern up really well in the transfer window, because if you look at the players who are out of contract in 2026 or in 2027, my head, if I'm not mistaken, Upamecano's obviously out of contract at the end of the year, and they've just brought this new central defender through. It comes in, as you mentioned, who could be a starter for them next season. Goretzka's out of contract as well. I'm not sure if he's in the contract this summer or next summer, but obviously they'll have to make a decision on him one way or another in the summer. They got Tom Bischoff waiting in the wings. He's been playing left back, but he's ready to kind of step in there as well. Not that Goretzka starts every week, of course, and they've also got Pavlovic as well. And the other one's Serge Gnabry as well. And, guys like Wisdom Mike, whoever, or Lennart Karl, they've already got replacements for a lot of those guys already in place. That's like the best part of 60 million euros in wages every year, Manu, between those three players. And all of a sudden you've got replacement for them without spending a penny. That's the power of youth academy. That's the power of having a good youth academy and developing these players properly. So if they all work out, and hopefully they do, then that makes Bayern squad planning over the next kind of 12 or 18 months a lot easier.
So what's coming up right now, there's more. There was another kid on the bench who didn't play, Felipe Chavez. We actually featured him in our talents calendar last year. Was from the academy, very good player, fantastic player, in fact. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The campus is sitting on a gold mine at the moment. And it's coming at the perfect time, right? And it's not just benefiting Bayern Munich, it's benefiting everyone. The German national team has always been at its best when Bayern Munich had 5-6 guys that they developed in their own academy, right? Because that builds the core, and then you can supplement it. And so this is an exciting time if you're a Bayern Munich fan. There were 4 academy players on the pitch at one point in this game. That is very impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very impressive, and it puts Bayern in good steps. So we need to see. Yeah, when you see actually, time to get in the second half.
Sorry, it was 5 because I forgot Stanisic. It was 5 academy players at one point. So even more impressive. That's half your squad. That's half your team. Right. Anyways, I think it's a great thing.